J of this, 12J, where is this Passuk in the timeline? So it spans the life of Noach and Shem, so it actually starts with Noach, who's mentioned in Parshas Breshis, Perek Hey Passuk Haftes, and Shem is mentioned in Lech Lecha in Perek Yudalet Passuk Yudches, because it mentions there Malki Tzedek, who was Shem, look at Rashi over there, the son of Noach. In Parshas told us, Rivka, we just mentioned, went to the Bes Medrash of Shem to inquire as to the reason behind her extremely painful pregnancy. You see Rashi over there in Perek Hafei Pasuk Haf Beis, and the answer is that the lifespan of Noach and Shem went through Breshis, Noach, Lech Lecha, Vayera, Chayei Sarah, and Toldos. That's 6 parshas. Don't tell the kids the answer to question I. Get the kids to figure out based on the materials in the timeline. Oh my gosh, this one pasuk spans 6 parshas and also overlaps with all 3 of the Avos and Sarah and Rivka. And it also overlaps with 3 worlds: the world before the Mabul, the world of the Mabul, and the world after the Mabul. And it's just opening up the mind of the child to the fuller scope of the Passuk within the context of the entire story of the Torah and mankind. Let's go to question K. Remember panoramic questions. Where is this Passuk geographically? Eila told us Noach. Well, we know Noach, where did he live? So some kids say, I don't know. Well, let's figure out. Does anyone remember where the Teva landed? Oh, Hare Ararat. Oh, very good. That's in Perek Ches. Does anyone know where, if he overlapped with Avram Avinu, when Avram Avinu was already 48 years old, where did all the people live at that time? Oh, in Shinar. Oh, in Bavel. Oh, it's the whole area of Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization. Just have the children open up their minds geographically and genealogically to how this Passuk fits into a bigger context. Okay, so question 12L. Is there a time lapse between this pasuk, Eila told us Noach, and the previous pasuk, which is Breshis Perek Vav Pasuk Ches, which is the last pasuk in Parshas Breshis? So it's just a question to get the kids thinking about, oh, so the last pasuk in Breshis, when Noach matzachein be'enei Hashem, Noach found favor in the eyes of Hashem, and then the next pasuk, which is our parsha, Noach, Eila told us Noach. So is there a time lapse, and is there a clear flow, or why is it that this is the start of Parshas Noach, a whole new parsha? They just ask questions. I'm just giving these as samples, not etched in stone. These are just samples of how you can ask panoramic questions. 12M. Is the information in this pasuk known elsewhere? We know that Eila told us Noach, ich tzaddik tamim haya. We know he was a tzaddik. We know that from before. We know who his children are from before. So what is this pasuk adding that we didn't know before? So is the information in this pasuk known elsewhere? And if yes, what does this pasuk add? What's it being moisef, or is it reinforcing a point that's already been made before? We know he's a tzaddik. Oh, but he's been called a tamim as well over here. In what context is he a tamim as well? Now here's N, 12N. I love this one. You remember what we're doing is it's a panoramic view of the same pasuk and getting the kids to think out of the box, out of the pasuk, and recognize how broad the Torah really is, geographically, genealogically, genealogy of all the different generations, where it is, how many parshas one pasuk could possibly span. So N, I love this question, is, are there any Tariq mitzvahs in this pasuk? When I was giving this presentation to a number of Rebbeim a couple of years ago, at that particular time we were in a very small room. It was the Menahel's room. It was a very small building altogether, and there was a kid who had been thrown out of class, and there was nowhere to go except in the Menahel's room. So he was sitting right next to the Menahel, and I was giving a presentation to the Rebbeim in the Menahel's room, and it was fascinating. That here's a kid thrown out of class who's been doing the Zichru method of covering a lot of ground, and when it came to this question, I asked her, how many Tariq mitzvahs are there in this pasuk? So the Rebbeim seem to have some sort of agreement that there's only 3 mitzvahs in the whole of Bereshis of Tariq mitzvahs. You've got the mitzvah of Puravu, Perek Aleph, Passuk Chavches. You've got Bris Milah, Perek Yud Zayin. And you've also got the mitzvah of Gita Nashe, Perek Lamed, Beis, Passuk Lamed Gimel. Those are the only 3 mitzvahs of Tariq mitzvahs. So that was the response and seemingly consensus of the Rebbeim, at which point Shmuley, I'm not going to tell you his last name, perked up and said, well, if he was a tzaddik, that means he had emunah in Hashem. That's the first mitzvah in the Torah. He's learning according to the Rambam. And he probably loved Hashem as well if he was a tzaddik. So that's Avas Hashem. And this got the Rebbeim thinking, oh yeah, you're right. How many mitzvahs are there? So Shmuley came up with another one, Halachta B'drachav, because Salech Noach walked with Hashem, so he was Mekayim the mitzvah of Halachta B'drachav. In Perek Chavches, Passuk Tes in Parshas Kisavai, oh my gosh, you start opening up your mind and realize, one second, if he's an Ish Tzaddik, so he probably had emunah, and he didn't believe in any other koyach except HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's the second mitzvah, Lo yeh lecha elamim acherim al panai, which is mitzvah of Zulasai. Oh, he had Havas Hashem, he had Yiras Hashem. Oh yeah, it's Hashem Mekich HaTirah. Oh, so that's a mitzvah deraisa, that's one of the Tariq mitzvahs. Very good. So one Rebbe said, Tamim Tiyah, is that one of the Tariq mitzvahs? So actually, in Rambam, it isn't one of the listed mitzvahs, but Tamim Tiyah Hashem Elokecha, in Perek Yud Ches Pasuk Yud Gimel in Dvarim, oh, that is numbered as one of the Tariq mitzvahs according to Sefer Charedim and also according to the Smug. Ho! So you start noticing, well, in one single pasuk, you've got V'halachta b'drachav, Emunah, Zulasai. Oh, did he believe HaKadosh Baruch Hu is the only power? Echad. Yeah, that's another one Tariq mitzvahs. V'halachta b'drachav. You have to emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shmuley also suggested that Noach probably was Mekayim mitzvah of Teshuvah. Because if he was Zeicha to survive the Mabul, it must have been he was a Baal Teshuvah too. You start realizing, whoa, look what's going on in this one Passuk. So even though the Passuk is not directly revealing one of Tariq mitzvahs as we list it, as sourced in this Passuk, but if you ask the question, how many Tariq mitzvahs are there in this Passuk? The predicate is, there are. And when your brain starts searching, well, what are they? You look at the Passuk differently and you start realizing, oh yeah, I say, and you start thinking about everything else that must be included of the Tariq, and your brain starts searching for Tariq mitzvahs as would be Negea relative to this Passuk. Amazing. It's such a beautiful way, panoramic questions, to open the mind of the child and look at a pasuk so differently. Besides being able to break it down into parts and then notice, are there any problems in spelling or in pshat or in grammar, and then compare and contrast, and then ask questions and record your questions, and then number 12, switch gears from depth to breadth and ask panoramic questions. So we're up to O of this. Number 12, which Parsha picture cards are described by this Passuk? Yeah, go through the picture cards of the Parsha, that's in building block number 3, the outline, the storyline of the Chumash, and start selecting which picture cards are part of this Passuk. So Eila told us Noach, we had Perek Hey, you got the 10 generations from Adam till Noach. Oh, so picture card number 5. Okay, good. Oh, in chapter 10, you got the Toldos of Shem. Oh, very good. Any other? Oh, chapter 11. You got the Haflaga there, but you also got the 10 generations from Noach till Avram. Oh, very good. So Eila Toldos Noach spans those 3 cards. So in P of this, 12P, which Parsha picture cards are covered by the lifespan of Noach from his birth till the death of his son Shem? Now you're going to be really busy, because you're going to start from the end of Bereshis, that's in chapter 6, where Noach is first mentioned, and now you've got to go to where Shem passes away. So if you know the actual age of Shem, you'll be able to work it out. And it's all scripted in with the sources inside your kuntras, in the pamphlet that comes with this DVD. So you can see in footnote number 14, in other words, in H above, we saw that from the birth of Noach till the death of his son Shem, there was a span of 1,102 years. So now the question is to identify which picture cards from the storyline reflect this time period. And the answer is chapters 5 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Because Melchizedek is mentioned in 14 in the war of the 5 kings against the 4, and Melchizedek came out to greet Avram Avinu, and Rashi identifies Melchizedek as Shem, the son of Noach. So he's right up to chapter 14, starting with chapter 5, and chapter 25, where Rivka, she was having her pains, her pregnancy, went to be Doresh from Hashem, which Chazal tell us was Shem, the son of Noach. So the footnote gives you the answer, but I'm only quoting it for your DVD. But don't give the answer to the kids. Let them go to the cards themselves and figure this out. Even split up the questions between the kids so that between them, they'll have this little project. How many years from Noach's birth to the death of Shem? Which picture cards of the parsha did this Passuk appear in? How many picture cards cover the whole of this Passuk, which is 1,102 years? Where is this Passuk on the timeline? How many Avos and Mahos were overlapped in this Passuk that they lived through? So if you want, you can either do this as a class activity or select the questions, these panoramic questions, and ask which chavrusas want to research it. So that was number 12. Number 13 is go through the same 12 steps of breaking up the chavrusas. That was number 1. And then number 2, you've selected the pasuk, put it on the board, and identify which words are new, that are not part of 303 Shloshim. Go through all the 12 steps with the next pasuk. Then do the same with the next pasuk. And over the weeks, you'll eventually complete a full parsha. I don't mean Parshas Bereshis, Noach, Lech Lecha, etc. I mean what the Torah means when it says a parsha, it's referring to the Ptuchos and Stumos. When the kids get to the end of a stuma from the beginning of the Ptucha, what you want the kids then to do in step 14 is continue the process for each sequential verse till you get to the next Ptucha and Stuma, and then they have to create a summary. So that's step 15. Ask the students to summarize in their own words that paragraph, that parsha. As you know, the Torah is divided not into chapters. That's actually a Christian innovation, and we use it because we're stuck with the cross-referencing that the chapters provide for us. It's just very practically useful. Not always accurate in the way they make their divisions, and that's sometimes deliberate. But our version is Ptuchos and Stumos. We also have Sheni, Shlishi, and Revi within each parasha, each weekly sedra, but the actual division is the Ptuchos and Stumos, which we've discussed a few times. So what you want the kids to do is after number 12, step 12, we've done panoramic questions. Now what we're going to do is do the same 12 steps for the next pasuk, then do the same 12 steps for the next, and continue till the end of the Ptucha Stuma, and then make a summary of that Ptucha Stuma. Now, it's interesting that more and more Chumashim are coming out with what Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan, I think he was the first one in his brilliant translation called The Living Torah of the Chumash. He writes there in his table of contents a listing of all the Ptuchos and Stumos, and he gives them a numbering within every single weekly parsha. So that these paragraphs, I'm calling them, which is really from the Ptucha to the Stuma, these paragraphs are numbered and given a name. They're given like a one-line summary for each one. So in that sense, the kids, when they come up with their summary of that Ptucha Stuma, they can look at the table of contents of Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan. And since he's done that, a lot of Chumashim have come up with a summary in their margin. Notably, the Chumash Simanim, Tanakh Simanim, they have a very, very brief summary for every single Ptucha and Stuma on the margin. And also Art Scroll have also come up with a very brief summary on the side margin. So those are references that children could then check against, not because it's right or wrong, just for the wording and how that editor of that edition of the Chumash came up with his wording either in English by Rabbi Aryeh Kaplan or in Hebrew with Chumash HaSimanim or in the Art Scroll. Once the students know the steps themselves, 1 through 12, to get themselves into Chavrusa, choose a Chavrusa, and then find the pasuk that they're starting with, and to go through all the 12 steps of identifying which words they don't know, then string together an English translation, then break it down into parts, and then to identify is there any questions we have in spelling or pshat or grammar, and then compare the different parts to each other and contrast the differences to each other. And then they're going to write down all their questions. We're going to see soon what we're going to do with all the questions, which they can also accumulate to create a kuntras, some sort of pamphlet, and eventually, if you want, at the end of the year, they could have a book of questions on the entire Chumash or all the parashas that they have covered. can publish it for themselves, for their family, extended family. And of course, we can have weekly or monthly visits to the Menahel and the Rav of the Kehillah, etc. Or if there's a veritable gadol in that area, or even visiting. These are all ways to deal with number 11, recording the questions. We're going to get to the answers later. So then number 12, we said, is panoramic questions. Lots and lots of different type of questions, which will change according to the Passuk. It's not going to be the same questions that you can ask on every single Passuk. But I gave you a lot of samples to give you a fairly good, I would say, head start. You can always contact me as well and tell me which Passuk you're up to, or Psukim, and I can give you guidelines of what type of questions you can ask. Okay, so we explained then that the child goes through all these processes. Once they know how to do this on their own, 1 through 12, then what you can do next is amazing. You can let go of even facilitating the learning by simply telling them, okay, B'chavrusa, choose which Passuk you're up to, or that's if they're up at different places, because it's Al Pi Darkai. Or if you're doing this as a class momentum, then everyone's going to be working in B'chavrusa with the same Passuk, and they have to go through the 12 steps themselves without you facilitating it, because they already know, you've done it enough times, 3, 4, 5, 6, however many times, there's no specific number, done with the class, that the kids know exactly what the steps are. If you want, you can give them a handout as well. They just have to check it off. Now they go through the 12 steps themselves. Hey, you, the teacher, are freed up to go around the classroom working one-on-one or with the small groups, answering specific questions, and possibly with an answer or with an actual question to make them be more resourceful and figure out the answer themselves. And that's really Al Pi Darka, because now you're working one-on-one or in groups of chivrusas. So that's an enormous benefit that you're gaining from this particular method. Also, what's beautiful about this method is that you could easily have 2, 3, 4 children in your classroom who are gifted, and they really get this quickly, and they're ready to move faster, not necessarily less thoroughly, in which case those chivrusas can select themselves, screen themselves, and tell you that they want to go at a faster pace. Or if you don't want them to go at a different pace in the class, let them do what the class is doing, and then they can go to a whole different perek, go together through the psukim in that perek as their own project, which they can select on their own. So that's an amazing benefit of this method as well. It's not one fit size all. One size fits all. So another benefit, which is on the converse of what I just described, is that if you've got kids who are struggling, then they can go at their own pace. They'll screen themselves with whichever's the right chavrusa for them, and you'll work with them to help them follow the different steps and identify where's their point of struggle. Is it because they don't know all the 303 shroshim, or they can't read accurately and fluently? Is it they don't know all the prefixes and suffixes, so they can't intelligently ask the questions on the diktuk and the pshat because they themselves can't translate properly the words? So you'll work with them according to Darkai, where they're holding, and go at their pace. So you're freed up in the whole time that all the rest of the class are working on these 12 steps. You're freed up to work at the pace of the kids that are slower or need more attention. So those are major benefits. And the last point I would make on this is that you're really doing what the Torah wants you to do, which is to switch from being a teacher, which I don't know if we even have a Hebrew term to accurately reflect the word, but even if we do, let's now understand that a teacher is really there, a Rebbe, to have lots of tools to reach lots of children, from the word Rav. Rebbe comes from the 2-letter root Rav, which also is the 2-letter root of Riv, which means conflict. Because you're there to help them notice the conflicting pshat, or the conflict in the fact that the pasuk is constructed grammatically incorrect, or the spelling of the word is different from elsewhere. And you're helping create that conflict by bringing to their attention the internal conflict in the text itself. So you're really fulfilling the Torah expectation, where you switch from gifting lots of information to being the one where they're doing the search for the treasure, instead of you gifting, hey, look what I found for you, this treasure. Look, here's what the Sefarno says. I found a treasure for you. Oh, look, here's the question that Rashi has, and here's the Balei Turim. And what you end up doing is, it's a one-way street. But this is all about the children discovering on their own, exploring on their own, digging on their own, extrapolating themselves. You give them the basic tools, they can do it. So these are some of the beautiful benefits coming out of this particular method. The next part of this is that once you've finished the session where the kids b'chavrusa are going through all 12 steps, you then call the attention of the whole class to share with each other, through you on the board, their conclusions. So you want them to describe each one of the 4 major steps out of these 12. What are the 4 major steps? Okay, Chavrusa, Chaim and Moshe, what did you come up in terms of translation? And have others say why they agree or why they disagree. Then step 2 would be Chavrusa, Chaim and Moshe. How many parts did you break this Passuk into? And then have other Chavrusas put their hand up to represent whether they agree or disagree. And it's not right or wrong. You want them to reveal their logic, their seichel, their thinking, their mindset behind why they chose 3 parts or 4 parts or 5. They might want to change their mind once they've heard how others came up with 4 instead of 3 or 5 instead of 4. It's not a right wrong. This is a meeting of minds. Milchamta shel Torah. And through that, the children will sharpen their minds and sharpen their ability to analyze. Analyze is comparing similarities, contrasting differences. Analysis is attention of detail. And that's what these are doing. So in this regrouping, after they've done their 12 steps between each other, now you're getting them to share with you what they come up for. Step 1, translation. Step 2, in terms of how many parts. And then step 3, what analysis did they come up with? Meaning you're going to ask them what were their conclusions. You're not going through the whole thing again. You're just asking what conclusions did you come up with, when they'll say, well, we noticed that this word in part 2 doesn't make sense as a continuation of this word from part 1. And they'll come up with their whole explanation because you've trained their mind to pay attention to detail so they can figure out, oh, there is a problem here in how the Passuk seems to be constructed. So let them, number 3, share with you their analysis. And then number 4 is what questions did they come up with and what possible speculative answers did they come up with. So those are the 4 steps you want the class to share with you through their different various chavrusas. Then, in terms of, let's say, class management, you've got lots of hands flying up. So you'll ask in a general way, did anyone come up with a very different translation? Did anyone come up with a very different number of parts? And help them share with you and their logic behind it. But essentially, you want to move through this so that you can come to the next step, which is very simple. You've given them a chance to share with you these 4 points. Now, you'll go to the next step, which is after they've shared with you their conclusions, and some of it you've summarized on the board. Now you're going to play the role of the teacher where you're going to facilitate the answers. How do you facilitate the answers? So here's where you have to have some preparation. Having prepared the psukim in advance yourself with various mefarshim, you will now be able to do what we mentioned earlier, is to identify which questions that they have shared with you on the board are already what the questions that Rishonim are asking. And you can tell them, okay, let's look at Rashi and see whose question does he have or answer. Let's look at the Radak, let's look at the Seforno, look at Rabbeinu Bachya, and you have them go through to find themselves. So they did the preliminary search for treasure, and now they're doing the real learning inside through your facilitation, because you're able to tell them where to go to find either the question or the answer. And then it's a whole sipuka nefesh, such a different satisfaction of the soul that the children are experiencing through learning themselves. You're facilitating, directing, guiding. You're not doing the teaching. You're facilitating their learning. So these are the most important steps here. Really, really important, that after they've come up with their own summary, then you get the children to break up into chavrusas, do the 12 steps for the next X number of psukim. If you've got some kids who are gifted, some who are, so to speak, slower, they'll go at their own pace, can go ahead, go more thoroughly. And someone might want to say, we want to do a project to find every single time it says Toldos in the Chumash. And there's so many ways this can go. And after they've done that, then share their conclusions with you, write up their questions that they come up with in steps 1 through 4 that we just described. Step 1, the translation. Step 2, how many parts did they break it up into? Number 3, what was their analysis, the conclusions they had from their analysis? And number 4, what are the outstanding questions and possible answers to those questions that they came up with. And now you, the Rebbe, who knows the Passuk and the Mefarshim, will guide them to the Rashi, the Sforno, the Radak, the Rabbeinu Bachya, whichever Mefarish you know is addressing their question or answer. The remaining outstanding questions, which you haven't answered, great. That will be part of the publication. If you want to have the questions and the answers they came up with, you have that part of the publication too. But here are the outstanding questions, meaning the questions which we still haven't found answers to, and publish those after you've already gone to whichever rabbi, Rav of the town, and you can print his answers too. And this becomes a Milchamta Shel Torah, it becomes a dialogue of minds that are thinking, how am I to understand this Passuk? Okay, now you can do a self-check. You remember we said this right at the beginning. Let's do a self-check. What's a self-check? What were the first 2 goals? We said direct goals and 3 indirect goals. 2 direct goals of this method. Number 1 is nurturing independence and learning. Does this method, these 12 steps, and what we did after by collaborating together, their conclusions of their translation and how many parts they came up with and their analysis and their questions and their possible answers, has that been a one-way street of me delivering information, you spitting it back, or has it been nurturing your independence and learning? And I think you'll say very clearly, prepare Male, let's check off that little box. For sure, it meets the need to nurture independence. Excellent. Does it meet the second goal, which is to deepen the child's appreciation for the depth of Torah and its scope? So you just look at the micro type of questions that we've created in this template and the panoramic questions, as I call them, and ask yourself, well, is this helping the children see the depth and also the scope of the Torah and appreciate how much information is really contained in one Passuk, how much is screaming out Darsheni, and how you can extrapolate, dig, explore, investigate, and then have the Sipuk HaNefesh from checking that off. Yes, I'm deepening my appreciation of the depth and scope of the Torah. And ask yourself, let's look at the 3 indirect goals. Have we fulfilled those as well? And that is a love for learning. I think this is very clearly propagating a very deep love for learning, where you will not notice the time go by because you're so absorbed, engaged in the learning. And then number 2, does this help you come to a love for Hashem? And I would even add a deepening of your appreciation of your identity and pride as a Jew. And I think it's very clear. You can be the ones to decide. Check it off. Yeah, this will help me have a deeper love for Hashem and recognize His love for me. And I feel more proud as being part of the Masorah, where I'm not just a passive link in the Masorah. I'm an active link in the Masorah. I linked myself to the Masorah in my questions and my answers and my digging and my investigation of the Passuk. I became the chain myself. I'm part of that. Not because I was put here by my parents or forced to be in yeshiva by my community. I want to be here. I love being from. This is what we're really looking for. So check off those original goals and ask yourself, have we passed the test of accomplishing what we set out to? And I think the answer is a resounding absolutely yes. Now, just in summary, you just go through the 12 steps. Number 1, set the kids up into chevrusas. This is fluid. It can change. The kids can say, it's not working out with this chevrusa, can I change? There's lots of flexibility, so don't take it as completely etched in stone. If you want to work in groups of 3, it's not an aveira and it's not a violation of anything. This is a template that you can tweak with. So number 1, set up chevrusas. Number 2, select a pasuk. Number 3, identify in the pasuk that you're working on, are there any words that we don't know from the 3-on-3 shroshim? If there aren't, where can you find them? Oh, let's look up a dictionary. Oh, let's check from our exponentially grown vocabulary from Targum Mitzvahs. Would we find this word somewhere in Targum Mitzvah? We can translate it from there. If necessary, go to an actual translation. But the most important thing here is don't answer their questions if they don't know the meaning of that word. Unless there's no other means, get them to be resourceful, find the answers themselves. That's independence. Then we said the next step is, now that you know the individual translation of each word, now string it together and come up with an English translation that is intelligent. Doesn't have to be perfect, it can't. Once you've got that, then we're going to break it into parts. And once you've broken it into parts, how many parts there are to this Passuk, the message you got last night in your dream, and figure out how many messages are there in this one Passuk dream. Once you've done that, then we're going to go through a 3-step process of, are there any problems you have with the spelling in part 1 or part 2 or part 3 or part 4? Do you have any problems with Pashup Shut in part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, or in the grammar, part 1, 2, 3, 4? And then once you've done that, then you're going to compare and contrast part 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 4 to 2, 4 to 3, etc. In many cases where the kids are still young and haven't got the intellectual maturity yet to do those steps of comparing and contrasting, so you'll go straight to the next step. Kids will record their questions. This is for later on, where either we're going to go to a Rav, we're going to discuss anyway between ourselves to find out what questions that we can answer from the text, how the Rebbe is going to help us find those answers. Record all those questions. Set up a weekly, monthly visit to the rabbi of the shul, of the community, menahal of this, to look for the answers, to work it through together. Very satisfying. Creates goals, creates accountability, puts everyone on their toes. Okay, number 12, ask panoramic questions. And we had about 20 guides of different questions you can ask geographically, genealogy, where else do you see this word? Where else have we seen the word repeated twice in the same pasuk, especially a name? Noach, Noach, Avram, Terach, Terach, etc. All these different questions. How many Targh mitzvahs are there in this pasuk? Where is it on the timeline? How many years are spanned by this pasuk? Which cards on the storyline are represented by these psukim? How many parshas does this one pasuk cover? Who else lived at this time of the avos, of the imahos, etc.? Lots of questions that broaden the scope of the child's understanding. And this brings you to the next step, I think we'll call it number 13, where the kids will do the same 12-step process for the next pasuk, and then the next pasuk, till they finish a whole parsha, and then give a summary for that parsha. We then explained that once the kids know this template, they can do it on their own. Frees you up. Work with the gifted children, work with the kids who are having a harder time, work with all the groups, and then you collaborate after they've done all their findings of the pasuk that they're working on with those 12 steps. Then you collaborate, collect all their findings, put it on the board, and go through the main 4 steps, which was the translation and how many parts they came up with, and what analysis conclusions they came up with, and finally what questions or answers. Now it's your turn to facilitate where they're going to find their questions are already in Rishonim, or it's even beyond, you can't find their question, it's such a good question, and where to find answers. So my blessing to you is that, similar to what Rabbi Yochanan said, I learned a lot from my Rebbeim. I learned even more from my Chaverim. But mitalmida yosem kulam, from my students, I learned the most. Because the meeting of minds, where you're not just giving a shear, and they have to spit back, where the whole predicate is, I know more than you do, and you can't know more than me. And you can't go beyond my cap, because then, that's intimidating. There's none of that. Yosem Mikulam, you, my students, taught me the most, means there was a real meeting of minds. You facilitated the children's ability to find treasure in Treasure Island and show you what they found, which you didn't see before. Or they came to without you teaching it to them. So this is a tremendous sipuk nefesh for a Rebbe to be ma'amid talmidim harbe, which is the first mission in Pirkei Avos. Vehevu talmidim harbe. It doesn't say harbe talmidim. It says talmidim harbe, which in the grammar of it really means to stand up many times the students. So it's not how many students necessarily, which is pashup pshat as well, even in the grammar. But usually you would say harbe talmidim, if you want to say that you're talking about a lot of students. But here it's talmidim harbe. So the students is not what the harbe is referring to. The harbe is going on the hemidu. Vehemidu talmidim harbe means stand up many times your students. And stand up, as we mentioned, is the language of independence. That's the purpose of the teacher, of the melamed, of the rebbe, of the mura who's guiding. That's who you really are. And in the schus of teaching Al Pi Darkai, helping children to discover the beauty, the perfection of the palace that they are exploring, of the Teras Hashem Tamima, the perfect palace of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. May we all be zeicha to stand up many students to become independent learners, and they on their own go through Kala Torah Kula and create many gedolim out of our beautiful students. And we all be zeicha to see the coming Mashiach b'mheira. Amen.